Hi, this is Michael Lane at Evidence for Faith. I have something exciting to offer you today. You see, on August 12th, starting at 6 p.m., now that's going to be Central Time, we're going to be offering a live Q&A event on our YouTube channel. Now, this is going to be a 2-hour event, and I'll be answering questions, some of the most frequent questions I frequently get, obviously, but also a lot of other questions. They can deal with the Bible, this can deal with science, archaeology, Christian living, whatever you get to ask. And we'll also be doing a signed book giveaway for this project also as we do this night. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and send them in ahead of time at info@evidenceforfaith.org, or just submit them during the event by just asking in the comments section, and I hope to see you there. So take care, and may God bless. Hi, welcome to Evidence for Faith. It's your host, Michael Lane, back with another segment in our series called the Temple Mount Sifting Project that we're doing. All about the Temple Mount and discoveries that have been made there and are still being made there. This part is part 5, and it's the Persian period and Zerubbabel's second temple. That's what we're going to be focusing on, the history. Actually, this is what takes place between the Old and the New Testament. You see, in our last lesson, we covered the first temple, Solomon's temple, as it's often called. It and Jerusalem, if you'll recall, were destroyed by the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar in 586 BC. Now, in this lesson, we're going to cover about 566 years, yes, of the Temple Mount, focusing on the Temple Mount. And we're going to be talking mostly about the history. I mean, it's very important that we understand the history of what's going on in those 566 years between, like, the Old Testament and when the destruction, shall we say, of Solomon's temple to the new temple. And we're going to be focusing on what's taking place there. And we'll take it right up until we get to where we have Herod the Great, then beginning the remodel project. But that's going to be focused on our next lesson. So we're also going to be focusing, of course, on some discoveries that have been found there that relate to this time period. Few artifacts have been published during this time. Now, to understand why there's so few, we have to cover the history. And bear with me, please, as we delve into the history, and in doing so document certain historical moments that pertain to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This is very seldom ever taught from the pulpit, so this is very, very important for us to understand and to learn what is going on. So to help you with this, I've developed a timeline to just walk you through these things and these historic events that will help you understand what the discoveries are that have been made. So let's begin. In 586 BC, the Babylonian destruction of the temple happened. It began the Babylonian dominance and their empire of that entire territory. Then the Babylonian Empire was conquered by Cyrus the Great, as recorded in the book of Daniel chapter 5. That's all in 586 happening. Now, in 538 BC, the Persian king Cyrus the Great allows the Jews to return to Jerusalem and orders the temple to be rebuilt. Now, we have an actual copy of Cyrus's decree on this. This is called the Cyrus Cylinder. In one of our other series that we did, this is called the Artifact Facts, this is one of our artifacts. This remarkable artifact actually has this event where Cyrus is allowing the Jews to go back to rebuild the temple. Please tune in if you haven't seen that in the Artifact Facts. It's called the Cyrus Cylinder, of which this is a copy right here. So, moving on. In 536, just 2 years later, Zerubbabel begins construction of the second temple, which would not be finished until around 516 BC under Darius I. Then in 457 BC, Ezra, the high priest, yes, there's a book in the Bible by his name. Ezra compiles the Old Covenant and the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, and he returns to Jerusalem, which is a key point, because just a few years later, in 444 BC, we have Nehemiah volunteering to come back to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls, and he actually serves as the governor. And this takes place then in our Bible. You can read in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. Then the next major event that's going to happens in 332 BC when Alexander the Great Macedonian king, comes across and he conquers the Levant, the land of Israel. He takes it from the Persians, who were being ruled at that time by Darius III. He is short-lived, as we all know. Alexander did not live long because in 323 BC he dies in Babylon, and the Levant now and the entire kingdom is divided up between 4 of Alexander's generals. He did not name a successor, so his 4 top generals divided up. One of them is a general named Ptolemy. He is the one who takes the area of what is today the Levant, the land like where Israel is, in Egypt. Thus, this began there in Israel, the Ptolemaic rule of the Levant. This goes on for a while. Different Ptolemies will come into play, etc., throughout history, until we get to the year 167. Oh my gosh, in 167 BC, there's a whole lot of stuff that takes place. So just hold on to this one. In 167 BC, Antiochus IV, he's sometimes called Antiochus Epiphanes. Epiphanes meaning God manifest, and gives you an idea about his ego. He was king of the Seleucid Empire, that was Babylon and Assyria, a descendant from another one of Alexander's generals. He was ruling that area, and he decided to conquer the Ptolemaic rulers there in the Levant and Egypt. So he fights them, and he conquers the Levant. And he removes Jason, who was the Jewish high priest, kicks him out, and replaces him with a man of his own choosing, a man named Menelaus, who ends up robbing the temple, giving the money to Antiochus and stuff, and encourages Antiochus to Hellenize the Jewish worship. In other words, he's outlawing Jewish rituals like circumcision, the feasts, etc. He desecrates the temple, putting idols in there. He sacrifices a pig on the altar, forces the priests of God to eat swine and drink juice, the juices and stuff. He takes the light of the menorah in the temple and he puts it out, the light that was supposed to shine forever, and he orders it extinguished, and he orders the Jews to worship Zeus, to no longer worship God, but to worship Zeus, the god of the Greeks. He murders thousands and thousands of Jews. Many people view Antiochus as a preview of what the Antichrist will be like. Daniel talks about this in one of his prophecies in his book, if you want to get into eschatology. But moving on. Because of all this happening, the Jews did not take this lying down. A rebellion began when a priest named Mattathias refused Antiochus's orders, and he refused to sacrifice to the Greek gods. And the people who came to make him do it, he killed them. Thus began a major revolt in what we call the Hasmonean dynasty. And this is going to rule the land for over 100 years, the Hasmoneans. We often call it that in time. So that was all 167 right in that period. Well, just a few years later, in 164 BC, Mattathias' son Judas Maccabeus, sometimes called the Hammer, military general, and he's a priest also. He leads a revolt against Antiochus and the Seleucid Empire. He removes the Greek idols in the temple. He purifies the temple. He relit the menorah. Very interesting story, because the temple had been desecrated. They found only a small little tiny quantity of olive oil that could be used to relight the holy menorah, and miraculously it burned for several days, which is where we get Hanukkah. That was the time of year it happened, and that's Hanukkah, sometimes called the Feast of Lights. Jesus even celebrates it. It's recorded in the book of John. Well, we have now the Maccabeans, the war taking place, and the Hasmonean dynasty has set into place. Later on, the Romans come. In 163 BC, the Roman general Pompey the Great comes down and conquers Jerusalem. He desecrates the temple by walking into it, but he didn't steal or destroy anything, but he did order the death of many of the priests. But now the Romans have charge of Jerusalem. Then a friend of the Romans, whose name was Herod the Great, around 20 BC, Herod the Great, who was a friend of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, though he never really trusted her too much, but he is friends with them, and of course Antony and Cleopatra have a contest about who's going to be the ultimate ruler of Rome when Julius Caesar dies, and Octavian, sometimes called Augustus Caesar, beats and defeats Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Herod was not there during any of this. He was fighting a different war far away. But he becomes and swears allegiance to Octavian, and because of this, and he becomes friends of Octavian, Octavian has the Roman Senate actually appoint Herod the Great as, get it, King of the Jews. Now you understand a little bit in the story, Christmas story, why the wise men were had so upset Herod when they said, "Where is he who's born King of the Jews?" Because the Romans declared Herod was the King of the Jews. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, now, Herod, when he comes to power, he orders the temple to be rebuilt. Now, this was Zerubbabel's temple. It was a small little temple compared to Solomon's. Well, he makes this massive expansion, which is today we often just call it not just the second temple, but we call it Herod's temple. And that's where we're going to pick up in the next lesson. But today, we have more things to talk about. You have the history. Now, what has been found on the Temple Mount that helped support all of this history that the Jews were there and all these things took place? There have been some amazing discoveries with historical records dealing with not just the Persian period, the Hellenistic period, but also the Hasmonean period. We'll get into the Romans next time with, of course, Herod. But let's take a look at some of the discoveries that we have. Now, in 2018, 3 very, very tiny Jewish minted silver coins were discovered by the Temple Mount Sifting Project. That's they're sorting through all the rubbish that the Muslims had taken from underneath the temple illegally, and they're sorting through it and sifting through all the dirt. They found these coins. These coins date back to just after the period of Ezra and Nehemiah, during which that was the Persian period, the Persian Empire, proving that the Jews actually had a presence in Jerusalem during that time. Solid proof of this. They bear the inscription YHD, now in ancient Hebrew script, that's English. That is short for Yehud Medita, which is the political province setting of which the stories with the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, they take place in that location. And Jerusalem also sits there. So this is all fitting with Jerusalem. On one side, you can see on the image we have here is a barn owl. Now, according to the Israeli Antiquities Authority coin department head, his name is Donald Ariel, these coins were minted in Jerusalem. That inscription shows that they were minted right there in Jerusalem. They're very small, they're a rare type of coin, but they have uncovered overall, the Temple Mount Sifting Project, going through all the sediments and stuff, have uncovered, are you ready? Over 7,000 coins. Many minted right in Jerusalem. Some from even as early as the Second Temple period, having to do with like Ezra and Nehemiah. This is just amazing with Zerubbabel's temple. Okay, another item that they have found, another coin. This is a bronze coin we're showing you here, and it bears the image of, look at that, Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Yes, the terrible guy whose reforms triggered the Maccabean revolt in 167, which ushered in the Hasmonean dynasty. On the reverse side of the coin is the goddess Persephone. Of course, there's going to be idols and stuff on this, but these coins date back to 175 to 164 BC. Again, showing evidence that Antiochus was there and this whole Hasmonean revolt taking place, etc. The next coin I want to show you, this bronze coin was minted in Tyre, which is like in present-day Lebanon, and it dates back to one of the Ptolemies, the Ptolemy III to be specific. The years would be around 230 to 222 BC. It has an image of Zeus. Remember, these Ptolemies were Greeks. It has the image of Zeus on one side and an eagle with a thunderbolt on the reverse, possibly showing evidence of an image of having to do with Zeus himself. Anyway, that coin was found. And here's another one. This amazing coin dates back to the Hasmonean high priest John Hyrcanus. This coin dates back to about 125 to 105 BC, right around in there. On one side of the coin, now look carefully as I describe this, on the left picture of this, you will see, just a little bit off center to the right, there is a pomegranate. That is very common with Jewish coins. So there is a pomegranate there, and it's in between two cornucopias, things that, horns that they put like fruits and stuff. We see those around Thanksgiving here in the United States on either side of the pomegranate. On the reverse side, all those little letterings, that's Hebrew inscription, which reads, Yehoanna, the high priest and the council of the Jews. Here we have it. Evidence again that the Jews were here at this time during this Second Temple, early part of the Second Temple period. So we have evidence here with the coins. Then let's look at these coins here. This coin is called a mite. And that's how it's translated in many of our translations that we have of our Bibles here in English. Now, this little type of a coin, lowest currency, was featured in one of Jesus' teaching moments at the temple. In Mark chapter 12, he talks about a poor widow who puts in 2 coins, which was all she had. And that's the kind of coin she put in. Now, notice, as you look at the picture of this, on one side, there is an anchor. And on the other side, it's these little dots and stuff, that represents an 8-rayed star is what that is seen. And we see this very, very commonly on all of these coins. So coins like these here, these are real coins here found there in Jerusalem. These and other biblical coins are available for you to purchase. Now, the Temple Mount project, they don't sell the coins, but my good friend at Zach's Antiquities in Jerusalem does sell you these coins. And these are authentic. They come with a certificate of authenticity. And if you're looking for a Christmas gift already, I mean, Christmas is coming up, you want to buy somebody a piece of history, go to Zach's Antiquities. He sells pottery, he sells coins, arrowheads, all sorts of stuff from biblical periods. And he is a very, very great, honest Christian man. He will get them to you with certificate paperwork all done. He can mail it to wherever you are. So visit zachsantiquities.com and go shopping, have some fun. Also, go to our store, because on our store we have products from the Temple Mount Sifting Project. Little bottles of the actual soil that has been excavated where they have found these coins. This one here, of course, is on a cross of olive wood, absolutely beautiful. And there's necklaces. You can buy pottery and other things that they have available there on the Temple Mount Sifting Project. So take a look. It's on our website, and just click to there and go shopping. Christmas is coming up. Well, my friends, in our next episode, we're going to be revealing more about the Second Temple, Herod's Temple, as we call it today so often, and what discoveries have been made there concerning that important structure. So, until we meet again, take care, and may God bless.